Most difficult part of my job, now we can do anything, we're the bottleneck. Generative AI is just a tool to be used to amplify the creative that's within you. If you had an idea, if you had a vision, if you have a goal, there is no time like right now to be building.
Well, welcome to Talent Freaks. Today's guest is Elizabeth Kealoha, a seasoned television executive, producer, writer, and strategist with over 2 decades of experience. She's an executive producer at Milan Pictures and co-founder of the Altura Festival, which used to be called the Atlanta International AI Film Festival, a leader in generative AI for filmmaking and empowering creators with emerging technologies. Her unique blend of traditional media expertise and innovative AI-driven storytelling is reshaping creative production. And if you're new here, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell. It helps this creative community grow. It means I get to keep bringing you more stories from the front lines of innovation. Thank you, Elizabeth, for joining me on Talent Freaks.
Thanks for having me, Andy.
Oh, it was a pleasure. Now, I got introduced to you through Alex Lugo, and he was saying that you were doing some really unique things with AI and film, or the film festival that I mentioned in the intro. Could you tell me more about that experience?
Yeah, sure. So Alex and I met through Altera and at one of our meetups. So in Atlanta, which is where we're headquartered, we have a monthly meetup, and we really encourage the community to come together because, as you know, filmmakers traditionally, and especially in the beginning, when writers are writing, it's usually a singular, or solo venture, and you kind of need to pop your head up every once in a while and see what's going on and chat with the community. And when we started moving into more generative AI within the filmmaking community or the content creation community, we wanted to explore having the same type of partnership and community there. And so we created these meetups. And Alex came. He actually is a fantastic screenwriter, actor, director himself. But he, as you know, became a startup founder. And the tool that he created with his partner, Film Pro, he came out and presented to our community. And it was really well received. So we were really excited to meet him there and continue a relationship on from that.
So tell me more about Altera. What makes it unique and different from a normal film festival?
So last year, when my co-founder Natalia Gonzalez actually started the AI Film Festival, so the Atlanta International AI Film Festival, last year AI film festivals were brand new, right? So it's still slightly controversial technology, especially in the filmmaking community, but it's really, at that point, it started much more for the independent artist, the AI storyteller or AI artist that wanted to get out and, again, start community, look for others, look for recognition. We saw it as a new tool, a new phase of entertainment and storytelling. So we really believed in it. She started it last March, and from there, we have rebranded into Altera Festival. Because Altera as a company is actually a more of a creative innovation ecosystem where we combine or partner companies, filmmakers, and kind of the opportunity for technologists to engage in the creation of stories and art. And so it really has evolved over the last year into an agency, an education, and an exhibition arm. So in the next couple of months, in June of 2026, we'll be hosting our first Altera Festival, but the second AI Film Festival here in Atlanta, Georgia, on June 16th and 17th. And this time we've expanded it into a summit and cinema experience. So it's not just a film festival. It really is, the daytime programming is all around. The first day is business and how generative AI and generative media in particular is being adopted within companies to tell their brand stories. And then the second day is really focused on independent filmmakers or AI content creators that want to leverage and commercialize themselves. So, how do you create a sustainable career? And how do you leverage emerging technology? Right now, the flavor is generative AI. And so we're
Mm.
leaning into generative AI. But how do you create a sustainable career where you can continue to tell stories leveraging the latest tools?
That's incredible. And so, what are some of the partners that are joining you in that festival? Because, and a little bit about my background when I lived in Greensboro, North Carolina, about 20 years ago. I was part of the Converge South conference, and it was the first year they wanted to do a film festival. So they asked me to put it together with no budget. So I went out and I did a bunch of social media campaigns, and I reached out to my friends. I was like, how many? Send as many as you have. And it was pretty cool because it was a web festival first, where you were talking about, what's hot in the market right now as far as like, products, but blogging, everything Web 2.0 back in the day. And then we had a film festival and then a music festival as well. So we mixed all these things. And it was really interesting to mix all those blends because you had all this different kind of media, different thinkers, where it wasn't your traditional film festival. When I hear what you're doing is like, who are the target people? Is it actually filmmakers or people who are kind of like dabbling in AI that have ideas and creations that they want to put out?
I think if you look back from the previous year, just all the AI festivals that have come out, and even the traditional film festivals that have started to adopt some type of AI category or inclusion, and as well as all of the AI generative tools that are out there that are also hosting their own film festivals or exhibition. And you see that the kind of the landscape of the submissions is broadening. We're
Mm.
really focused on making sure that there's a cohesive narrative story at the core of it. And even so much that if, as you know, sometimes, traditional storytellers, we want perfect. We don't want an iterative process, right? And so we want to make sure it has our approval on it. The stamp is beautiful. We're okay showing it to other people. And Altera this year is Altera Festival this year is actually encouraging people who haven't even finished their projects, but that are showing that that they have the skeleton, right, of the good story they're still learning the tools. We understand that those early days last year was really a prompt and an output, and it was more a narrator or voiceover that was telling the story because there were lots of um, challenges to getting character consistency or voice consistency or lip flap, right? There was a big issue with lip flap. The tools.
What's lip flap?
Oh, when your voice is saying something, but the character's voice is no longer
Oh,
matching. So,
got it.
just the little technical production parts of um, that were more difficult. And so I think last year and leading up into this year, what you saw were more short form adoption that were if it was equivalent to it would be equivalent to like in the comedic world a one liner, right? Not a
Mm.
long setup and then a punchline. It was like quick hits so that you got the story really quickly or you got the essence of the story really quickly. And what we really are encouraging our members and our community and those folks that are submitting is remember to tell the more cinematic story and use it as a layering tool so that you can, I was on a project a couple of months ago, and lip flap was still a real issue if you were using
Mm.
generated avatars, but real voices, and having those two things match up. Well, a week and a half after we turned the project in, of course, somebody came out with three people came out with three tools that would have satisfied that, and we were banging our heads trying to, you know, stitch it together. And brought in visual effects, traditionally trained visual effects folks to, to mirror that and make it look seamless. So
have any of the AI businesses or products ever reached out to you to not just to sponsor, but also just to kind of talk to you? Because I know you work with community as well, as far as bringing AI knowledge to the community. And I want to say before we jump into that, let's continue into the film festival story. So yeah, let's talk about like do companies try to come in and, I wouldn't say be an influence, but just support or sponsor you?
yeah, we're definitely at a period of time. I mean, last year, any AI tool was looking for any community to beta
Mm,
test their products and iterate. There's something called CPP, which is a creator partner program. That's really big for a lot of these AI tool companies that are looking for content creators that are just doing volume, right? So that they can it's a tech term, but it's like, they want you to break it so that they can
mm.
figure out how to iterate and make it better for others, for the mass market. And so that's still very much in play with a lot of the tool users. You have the folks that really adopted the technology early last year and the year before. They have lots of CPPs with they have CPPs with lots of different vendors. And but the vendors and the tool companies are growing also, right? So
Hmm.
I think most people have heard of 11 Labs, which was started
Hmm.
off as an audio model. They've now gotten into image and video. So what's happening in the tech side of this is everybody kind of went in very focused on one area using one particular model. And then as they've grown their base or their community or their users, they are starting to add more and more. So now you're seeing the evolution of what was a tool company now become a platform, and now become more of an aggregator of lots of different models underneath the hood.
So how long are the films in the film festival?
So what we're finding on the submission side is that there's nothing over 20 minutes, so they still fit
Okay.
very much into the traditional short film focus. And I think I would accredit that to a couple of different things. Now, the one thing I will say is that is much different than last year. Last year, we would be lucky to get anywhere from, 5 minutes as a max. So you can see that it's starting to elongate. I think that as we move forward, you're going to see more and more longer forms start to come into play. But again, it's not necessarily length that we're worried about. It's really is the essence of that storytelling. Is the format there? Is the narrative spine there? Um, you know, it's we're not trying to replace the traditional filmmaker. We're kind of
Yeah.
the way that we look at it is we're opening up the newest lane to more filmmakers that
Mm.
might not have been able to go to school for filmmaking, or they did and now they're just looking at this as another tool in their toolkit. And so there's really two types, but the distribution has changed over the last couple of years. It used to be much more a gatekeeper environment at the studios and the distributors and the exhibitionists, or the exhibitors. Now, YouTube, the direct consumers, social media. There's all kinds of new distribution that are out there. And so this is just an opportunity for new storytellers or traditional or experienced storytellers to just, I have a lot of Hollywood writer friends and they have a ton of work that has sat on a shelf because they couldn't get
Yeah.
it sold through. And now they're starting to reimagine what some of that could look like. And they're not waiting anymore to get somebody to sign on. They're actually just, in their free time, they're starting to adopt some of the tools, starting to figure out, originally this might have been written for live action. Can I reimagine it for traditional 2D animation or 3D animation? Or what can we do with this? So it's a whole different lane.
I agree. I think, AI, especially with video AI, it now opens the door for a lot of the writers that for years have always wanted to, like you just said, get their, work done. But a lot of times you can't do it because of graphics, CGI, or, it's the budget's too big. And now they can do almost, anything with their imagination. And I think that's so amazing, especially for writers, because those are the ones who are the storytellers. And if a lot of the times where, for me at least, where you start seeing films or stories kind of lose it is when too many hands get involved, and you lose that soul, the heart, and it's now more about the business and more about this works, we should go this way. So I'm excited about anything that gives creatives, I wouldn't say an advantage, but something that now they don't have anybody else kind of dipping into them and telling them what they should do. Now they have freedom. And so I also know the other side of that is a lot of people are just excited now they could do anything. So they're putting anything and they're losing a lot of story. Then that's where we see AI slop. And I remember talking with you last time. It was great what you said about, people were excited or jumping in. That's where the AI slop is coming from. But the filmmakers are the ones who are really using it to empower their stories. Could you tell me more about what you're seeing on that end from filmmakers, and also just from people that you bring, this information and, the product to?
Yeah. I think there are two distinct, folks that are adopting this. One are
Mm-hmm.
those that see the possibility that they have always wanted to be a storyteller in whatever form that uh, spoke to them, but they didn't have the means or the accessibility or the opportunity to do that before. And so they chose a different path. And that path also allows them to test the tools, try out the tools. And it is a little bit like magic, right? It's
Yeah.
not it's not easy. You have to practice. You have to figure out which tools to tell your story, those types of things. Um, it is magic in terms of you could put anything in, and basically the output is pretty good, right? But the second part of that is where I think um, for the newbies, what we're trying to do is, yes, get you excited, get you familiar. It's of what the tools can do, and like work with everybody within the community um, to feel really comfortable with the platforms or the tools and those types of things, and why they would be making decisions of which tools to use. But what we're really trying to instill in them too is, it's if you want to make this a business for yourself, right?
Mm.
If it's a hobby, great. You can do it. If you want to make it a business and you want to start to actually look at money coming in, then you need to also understand a bit more about the business, right? So
Mm.
we're also encouraging people to understand the IP side of it, the distribution side of it. How do you market, right? What are partnerships? Those types of things. For the traditional filmmakers, though, what I would say is they have a leg up if they want to adopt these tools, because they've already been trained in some of the hardest parts, which is what format to choose for what distribution, who is their audience that they're writing for. Those are business decisions that they already kind of have baked in because they've been around it or they've been trained up in it. But what they really have been trained up is that spine, that narrative spine, how to tell a good story, what is an inciting incident, what are the turns, what's the resolution, right? Those types of things have already been hopefully part of their craft. And so they're at a, what I would say is, you're probably, if you're that type of filmmaker or that type of creative, you're already ahead of the game. So if you're not adopting the tools to kind of amplify or escalate your vision, because usually again, starting with the page, if you're a writer, you have to sell your words. But
Mm.
this way, you can almost sell your vision, where people are not reinterpreting it at every stage. And so it's much more it's much more for those writers specifically. If you wanted to be a writer director, right, or a writer hyphenate, these tools, I believe, really help you because you will know how to, if you know how to use the tool, you know how to extract the output that you're looking for. And now instead of just saying like, hey, will you read this, 120-page script or whatever it is, you can say, hey, sit down and watch this 2-minute, trailer that I created
Mm,
because, and it's from your head, right? It's the characters that you wanted to see. It's the lighting and it's everything that you had in your brain when you were writing it. And now you can show it to somebody else and they're and it's in a day where everybody's time constrained. Nobody likes to read anymore, right? The executives, the folks in the traditional gatekeeping
oh,
mechanisms don't want to. They want to view it first.
I think also, I think it's hard to, I've read plenty of scripts, but especially someone outside of that, it's hard for them to read and kind of understand, the inflection. And I know you have those, everything else in it, and they're reading it in their head. So to be able to see it and feel it and hear it, it's pretty exciting. But I wanted to talk about, so the tools, it's crazy how fast things are changing. Kind of like what you were saying last year, there was like 5-minute videos. Now it's up to 20. And that's because the technology is getting better and better. And Sora 2 is now off the table, and this is kind of like where it's at right now. Like by the time next year comes around, it's going to be completely different again. It's so fast. What are some of the tools that you are seeing that you would recommend for filmmakers?
Well, instead of specifically pointing out tools, I would say get to know the models, right?
Mm,
Because it is, what's happening is this technology is allowing production to go from, is to consolidate the production pipeline, meaning you almost have pre-production, physical production, and post-production happening all at the same time, as opposed to three
yeah.
separate verticals. And so that's one thing to kind of wrap your head around is that you can be iterating even if you don't have a script, but you have an idea or an outline. You can still be iterating on what that looks like because you're like, I have this idea for these characters. And then you go off for a day or a few minutes, depending on how good you are on the tools, and you can generate your characters, right? And now you have them sitting there motivating you to write more. Or you have a scene that you've completed and you're like, I really don't know if this should be I've heard some people call it ego driven, which is like live action equivalent, or if this should be a monster movie or if this should be a whatever genre it's in. You can actually iterate on that and see it play out now before you write any more. And so I think these tools really are almost like an, an opportunity to lean into the previs of things,
Mm,
right? As opposed to just going, oh, I have to write the script and then I have to go into production. You can almost be in production trying to figure out like, oh no, actually this plays better. I want it to be a comedy. I want it to be for,
yes.
young adults or adults, but now it can actually be adult animation,
Yeah.
as opposed. So it allows you to iterate, I think, a lot, be more creative and see it first and feel it out first. So, so instead of saying specific tools, I would say get familiar with the terms of what the models are, and that's large language model, which everybody associates as a chat bot, right?
Hmm.
GPT, ChatGPT, or Gemini, or Claude, and then so those are the LLMs or the chat bots, and then you have image models, and then you have video models, and then you have audio models, and then you have world models, right? So it's an evolution, and the world model is really something that's pretty amazing right now. It's that it's uh, it's basically generating a world, a 3D world as you're moving through it. And so that's really exciting. And a lot of these are now becoming these models, or these foundational model companies like Anthropic or Gemini or OpenAI that have these chat bots, right? These large language models that have these chat bots. They're starting to introduce more of a multimodal platform, which means you will get an image model and a video model inside their traditional large language model. So they're starting to consolidate all these different models into one package. So you go into the platform, you don't leave. Um, then those are kind of the big guys, or big
Mm-hmm.
companies. And then underneath that, you have more specifically trained tools or platforms that are leveraging lots of different models. And it can get really overwhelming. So I'm trying to keep it really high level for some folks. But there are um, really hundreds of models out there that you can choose
Yeah.
from, hundreds of tools that do very specific things. And there are opportunities for people to use what's called open source models, where there's a base that you can actually, that's open to the community. It's managed by the community, usually on Hugging Face, which is kind of where you
Mm.
can find all of these different open source models. And you can take that base and start to train it, fine tune it on your own training data. So it can do a very specific thing for you as long as you have enough training data to do that thing. So there are options. You can opt out of kind of the big folks, and you can start really drilling into. Now I'm getting super nerdy, but there are opportunities for you if you don't want to opt into the system and you still want to leverage the tools. There is an alternative for those folks too.
Well, I loved what you said. It really made me focus when you mentioned about like now the characters are there and it allows you to come back. And it's not just like words on a page. You go like, where can these go? You could try things. And if it doesn't work out, you'd be like, nah, that didn't work out. You can actually see it. So that is such a huge advantage as far as, when you're working on storytelling, where you could try all these different things going like, yeah, I love this one better. But at the same time, with me, I'm very indecisive. So if I do have that many times, it would drive me absolutely bonkers going like, hey, go this way, could do this, that. What am I doing? But that's just me. And I'm sure other people feel the same way.
I think a lot of creatives are the same way, right? We work off deadlines.
Yeah.
So, and if you're the client and you're the deadline, it's so easy to push that deadline. So what I would encourage people to do is just if you do want to start adopting these tools, right? Um, Learn a little bit enough to be dangerous, and then just go find a client, and you
Mm,
can say, just pay me $50 to do this, or 100, something that would be enough that would motivate you to finish something by a specific time, because that's really the best way to push the tools, is to have a very specific job you're doing, usually for somebody else in the beginning, because it forces you to hit the deadline. It's their
yeah.
vision, it's not your vision, which can change all the time. So, I would encourage people to kind of put their own gatekeeping in place to keep them exercising, if you would, right? Exercising with the tools, exercising with your brain and your craft.
Yeah, I think that's great advice too. Because when I worked at the last company I worked at, um, our budgets were just cut everywhere. So I couldn't go out to our clients to get their stories, but we had all these white papers, and so I was just like, hey, I could save us money. We could still tell their stories. No one's doing this right now. Let me jump in with video AI and do something creative with all these white papers that we have. And they're like, well, how much is it? And so I couldn't even get
Yeah.
I couldn't even get that. So I see there's so many things right in front of not just filmmakers, but also, corporate people or corporate companies, brand companies, all these things that man, there's so many opportunities right in front of them that they can continue trying and working with. And these are all tests too. Like if you already have a subscription, jump into it. Let's get it started. But I want to ask you about, you have definitely a really good history of being in TV and films. What made you transition into AI, the AI world? And I know I was specifically talking about the pandemic.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so my history, um, although I've done a lot of different things, right? I've been in film and I've been
Hmm.
in gaming. My really I'm television. And so that's really my
Okay.
background is television. And that includes, and I started in commercials, right, as a set PA. And when I left the last time before going independent, I was an executive vice president of original programming for a company. And so and that was on more of the creative side. But I had also been the VP of programming operations, and so launching television networks operationally. So I had both the
Oh,
operation
wow.
side, the distribution side, and the content creation side. And you know, right before the pandemic, I was just burnt out, to be honest.
Mm.
We were launching first multiple networks and then scaling them appropriately and then moving into original programming and launching original programming to start building out our slate and our relationships with the audience. And it was a ton of fun, but it was a lot. And there was only so much of me that could be spread around. And to your point about, resource, I wouldn't say it was resource constrained, but it was and the companies were fantastic, but it was very much like it was entrepreneurial, right? We were growing
Mm.
as and reinvesting as quickly as we could back into the companies to grow them. And so we, uh, so it had just gotten to the limit where I was like, I need a little bit of a break. And so my break I thought was going to last about 6 months. And that was in 2019. And then the pandemic came in 2020. And so my 6 month break extended. And then I said, well, it gave me actually the time to sit and breathe and figure out, if I spent the first half of my career doing XYZ, and I sat there and really evaluated what I loved about the things that I did,
Mm.
and I evaluated the things I didn't really love. And then I tried to look ahead and say, is there a place where I could fit in the next? Um, and so I ended up going back to school to get my executive MBA because what I realized when I did that kind of an audit of my career, I was a really good number two. I would
Mm.
execute really well and I would be very focused on optimization at scale, right? So we could run lean and still produce at volume and at quality. But what I didn't understand quite as much was the business, the before it got to execution. And
Okay.
so I really wanted to invest in myself. And so that's why I chose to go back to school. And it was fantastic. I loved it. I loved every second of it. Um, I it was a luxury for sure because I didn't have to work at the same time. And so I really focused on just the learnings, the community,
Wow.
building up through my cohort, and it was fantastic. I loved it. But while I was there, I also, part of me was like, okay, I chose a school that was in LA. I specifically because I was like, this I thought was going to position me at a better place to get a job within Hollywood. I had built my career outside of Hollywood.
Okay.
And it was also during the time when everybody was trying to figure out streaming, right? Netflix had figured it out, but everybody else was trying to figure it out. And so it's hard to believe that was just a couple years ago.
I know.
Feels like forever ago. And coming from outside of Hollywood and being in the room with people in Hollywood at the moment they were trying to figure out if they were entertainment and media or if they were tech. And right, because they were tech. They were all
Yeah.
being bought out by tech. They were all being, influenced by tech. The consumer was basically adopting a tech first consumption habit. Entertainment and media was just pushed through tech. So I kind of made the judgment call then that I didn't think that a lot of folks, especially in TV, were looking at the audience viewing trends to figure out where the youngest generations at the time were not moving to traditional screens. And so when I would have these conversations with more of these legacy companies, that was never part of the conversation. It was like, no, they'll migrate. I'm like, they're not migrating, right? I don't think
Yeah.
this is what's going to happen. And so I made the decision to start moving more into tech while I was there, while I was at school. And so I focused on entertainment, technology, and entrepreneurship because I really felt like uh,
Smart move.
I'm an entrepreneur. I think, I manage a lot, but I think I'm more of an entrepreneur. And so the last year I was there, and again, I was there for 2 years. So right before the last semester, OpenAI came out with ChatGPT.
Hmm.
And the minute that somebody put it in front of me, and I was lucky enough because the person who had put it in front of me was a friend in one of my cohorts, but she had a history of being in the hacking community. And
Oh, interesting.
so she was a long life, was in that community, grew up in that community, understood that. She now she works for a larger company than she did before. But she's gone through 3 transitions in all major entertainment and media companies in their piracy area. So she actually, when she sat me down, I was like, well, why isn't it doing this? Why isn't it doing that? And she kind of coached me through how you talk to technology, especially one that was still being trained.
Oh, okay.
And so I got, again, really lucky to have been able to have more of an insider look at how the technology worked first. And so you were basically, in the very beginning, you were training the tech to get better, right? And we're still training it to get better, but it was really like it couldn't even really do addition yet. It was like a baby. It was very interesting.
Yeah.
And now I use it, I'm on 3 different systems. I'm building AI agents. It's a completely different process. But anyway, so when that came about and I got my hands on it and I saw the inkling of what it could be, is when my mind just was like, this is the connection piece, right? It's going to be a mindset shift. I understood that. And so after graduation, instead of looking immediately to go get a job, I actually spent the next couple of years learning from the ground up generative AI and what it was and what it could do and how it was trained and the history of it, because it was the only time I recognized that it was the only time in history that I was going to be on an even level playing field as somebody who had studied artificial intelligence, because in those early days, nobody knew what it was. Nobody understood the black box. We now know better, what's happening, but I was in, so I just immersed myself into any talk, any enterprise conversation, because I realized enterprise was going to be adopting this very quickly
Mm.
and at the
Yep.
most stringent security levels that they could. And so about a year ago, year and a half ago, I started to come back to my entertainment roots and try to figure out how can the technology support the creators and the creative. And so it's still, right, there's no one right answer. There's no one roadmap. We're still all trying to figure it out. But I really do believe that this next era is the independent era. It's the entrepreneurship era. It's the storyteller era. It's if you had an idea, if you had a vision, if you have a goal, there is no time like right now to be building because you can do it.
Yeah, and from just in my perspective, like I've already built like 5 different apps, and they were just for me, what I needed at the time. Even I had a file I shot this past week, 3-camera setup, and one of the cameras, the file was corrupt. And I went online, and I was just like going there, like it only could pull 6 minutes of a 30-minute conversation. So I created an app, and it did the same thing. I couldn't get more than 6 minutes, but I saved money by doing that, by creating my own app. And it's just crazy to think about now all these solutions that are out there. Now we have the ability to create it ourselves, and which would be nice. And I know I have plenty of friends that are building apps for enterprise or to sell to other people, to get them to work on it. And something you mentioned about enterprise, I was just at Google Cloud Next last week, and they're pushing all their AI into enterprise now because they have everything as far as the stacks, like the maps, the email, the calendars, everything is kind of connected. And a lot of companies use Google Workplace, so they're pushing it all out. I couldn't understand or grasp exactly what they're trying to do, but it was like it was the buzz of the conference.
Yeah.
So tell me what Altera does, Community First Foundation in Atlanta, and if you can explain what those monthly meetups are and how you got the idea for that. I think it's really fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, Altera, again, it's the way in hindsight, it's easier to kind of explain than going through it because you're just at the moment last year we were like, oh, we should have meetups, right? Because we had just Natalia had just had the film festival and it was like, well, what now? Right? Like that was great, but like what now? And at that time there were 3 of us and we had been meeting and being like, oh, we could do this here, we could do that here, because we were just 3 women wanting to to learn more about the technology and learn how the tools, what tools were out there, where do you get the tools, how do you use them, how you access them, what happens inside. And so we were like, there's got to be more of us, you know? And so we just said, well, why don't we just start having meetups? We could do it every month. And so we partnered up with ATDC in Atlanta, which stands for the Advanced Technology Development Center. And it's actually the first state, as in Georgia state, because it's in Georgia, the state of Georgia. It's the first state subsidized accelerator for advanced technology in the United States. It started actually in 1980.
That's
And
pretty awesome.
yeah, and up until that point, creative was not tech, right? Up until generative AI came on and generative media tools started to come into play, or generative AI for content creation came into play, it wasn't really where you would find creatives in ATDC. But we host our meetups every month in the same place. So that really
Good.
helps, right? To have a single location where people can come and congregate and learn. And one of the reasons we chose ATDC also is because I said it's a state subsidized accelerator for found up starters. And so what we had recognized too within the community is that filmmakers are really entrepreneurs, right? It's a gig economy. You have to find a job. You're selling a service first. You're selling yourself, you're selling a service. But we started to think like just to your point, Andy, when you said, oh, I've built a couple of apps, right? And you spun them up and they're for you, and you're not doing the underlying technology layer. But if you had an idea as a creative or a challenge or a problem that you had in your life that you found out that other creatives had, and you were in a space where you said, oh, I have this startup idea, but I don't know where to go and I don't know who to engage with. And I just don't know what it is. And that's just going to be too much work. And I'm a creator, right? So I'm just going to do my thing. Forget that. I had that idea, but whatever. By putting those creators in the space where it's a startup resource rich place and there are advanced technology folks already there, startup founders already there, and they're attached to Georgia Tech, which is one of the number one colleges for tech and AI right now. I believe NVIDIA has a supercomputer sitting over there, right? So that the students and the professors can be working on that. But we really valued the opportunity to be in the same space as that. And really where I'm going and the reason I'm telling you all this is because what we really want to focus on is, again, that sustainable career for creatives. And we believe that that doesn't have to just look like one thing. It doesn't have to just look like you're just a screenwriter or it can,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
But if you're a multi-hyphenate and that multi-hyphenate isn't just screenwriter or writer, director, producer, or actor, it could be director, startup, founder, technology company, right? Because the tech partner you might find is actually in the space you're coming to for the meetups anyway. So we're trying to.
I have a question.
Yeah.
No, go ahead. Finish.
No, I
Go
was
ahead and
going to
finish.
say, so we're being very intentional about, we always have a meetup every month. At the meetups, we kind of break it up. Part of the meetup is speaker comes in and talks to us about a business part of it. So we've had lawyers come in and talk about IP copyright. We've had, just last week, we had Andy Maisley from, he's a climate control carbon, how AI is affecting the environment as a researcher. So he came in and really shown a spotlight on what the real impacts of generative AI are doing. And we did that because what we started to realize is that people who were not adopting or who were very adamant against the technology, one of the reasons was because of what it was doing to the climate, what it was doing to the environment. And so we wanted to have our community members understand, was that hype? Was it real? And so it's all about context. And so Andy was really able to help us put things into context and make us, one, feel better about what we're doing and how we're using the tools, but then we're more informed and educated so that we can educate and inform other people about that. And those other people, hopefully, are clients who then that's a no that you're taking off the table, because it's like, actually, here's the data that supports that this is actually probably a better thing for you than you realized going, into other areas. And then the second half of the meetups are creation. So we usually have a challenge that you could do on your own or you could do in a team, and then we screen. So we are always looking.
Oh, cool.
So we want people, right, to get their chops up, their muscles going, but also the celebration of sharing. And it's also what we're realizing too is it's a safe space then for people to stand up and present their work. So they get more familiar with talking in front of people, pitching themselves. It's the soft skills too. So we're really intentional about our meetups and what we're doing and how we encourage people and support them. And we're kind of running ahead to make sure that when they're ready to go through the next door, the door's open, the light's on, right? The music's playing. We're trying to do those things for the membership.
That's amazing. Really impactful things you're doing in Atlanta. That's really cool. How does the community responding to this?
Really great. I mean, I think we've had 3 startup founders come through our doors, meaning they came in as creatives and maybe they had some idea. And we have a couple more that have ideas and are building ideas out right now, but 3 of them have kind of spun off into actual businesses. Um, we have a number of our members that are now, they came in as like, oh, I'm kind of interested in this. And now they're working. They have clients that have come in and been introduced through our network to them. And so, again, our motivation is creating sustainable careers for creatives. And we want to make sure that when the clients come, that our members and our community are prepared and for not just the execution part of it, but where do I go to get the lawyer that I need to negotiate this certain contract? Or where do I, is there a support system? I'm having trouble, getting money from my client, or what's the rate I should be charging the client, or
Yeah.
I need other people to subcontract out. Right. So we're having a great time. I think the members are, they keep coming back. We keep building. So we're excited. Yeah.
So that was a great pivot that you did during the pandemic. That's amazing.
Completely different, but the same.
Sure. Do you have any? Is there any traditional film festival experience that you had that helped you with this?
No. So, to be honest, so again, I came from television, not
Okay.
film, right? So, everything that I'm bringing to the table is really more of the back end, the buildup of the company part of it. Natalia is more of the film festival. And here's the other great thing about this is that I'm kind of the veteran, right, of the co-founders. Natalia is not that many years out of UGA filmmaking school. And so the issue that she was having is she graduated and she couldn't find a job, right?
Yeah.
And and she couldn't find any opportunities to actually direct. And so she was like, okay, well, she started to leverage the AI tools originally so that she could start to present her work better through pitch decks and through marketing materials and things like that. And that is actually how we met, is that we met through a different meetup from another education company that was teaching AI filmmaking.
Okay.
And so we were looking for in real life, Atlanta chapter really is where we originally started with this, is that we were going to create an Atlanta chapter of this online education tool. Um, and something else happened, right? We created Altera.
Well, for me, I think what's missing almost everywhere is community. And I think we've kind of fallen back on our devices too much, isolating ourselves from others. We could do this. And we're kind of like we all have our own interest and we just kind of go over here or over there. And we have a hard time coming together. So I love hearing what you're doing with that. And I love hearing about community. The one thing that I was going to ask you about film festivals, it's just about distribution and all those other things, because I do have filmmaker friends that are having issues even getting into film festivals, but now they're going into distribution for themselves. So I think that's amazing that you could do that. But do you have any goals to kind of like kind of gonna say like copy and paste what you're doing in Atlanta in other areas that might embrace this kind of thing? I know North Carolina has some amazing communities like that,
Yeah.
but Atlanta I know because of the film industry that has been present there for a while.
Yeah. Yeah, we would love to take this. We would love to take a successful model of Altera
Mm,
and go in and, because really it's a community first build up.
yeah.
And And so I think that's, if everything works, it's on the roadmap. But we got to make it work first here successfully.
Absolutely.
And so, and I'm also on the leadership board of something called the Creative Economy Collective here in Georgia, where we're really focused on growing the creative economy here in Georgia. And so so everything really that I do is in service to growing the creative industries, growing the creative economy. That's not, it's starting here in Georgia because you kind of have to eat an elephant in bites, not boil the ocean type of, to throw in all the analogies. But it's nice to iterate in your home.
Yeah.
I'm located in Georgia. I'm located in Atlanta. Your network, right? And I'm saying this not just for me, but I'm saying this for any of
Mhm.
your listeners and your viewers, is that just start small. It's okay to start small, right? And iterate and figure out. It's better to start small and fall on your face a couple of times in a small room than walk into a big room and fall flat on your face because you weren't prepared. And so, that's a little bit of the mentality of again, it's community. And the last thing I'll say about the community part, and tying it back to when I was in traditional television, um, looking at the trends or the future of the viewing experience and seeing that these younger generations were not migrating to traditional
Mm.
television sets, it's the same. It's kind of the same. What's going to happen, I think, is that all communities, because this technology allows people to create something that could be fake, right? You don't know if what you're consuming on these screens anymore is real.
Yeah.
And there isn't a regulation that mandates that it has to be AI watermarked, or there isn't that yet. It's coming probably, but it's still going to be years before that it makes its way around everything. And the reason I say that is because I do think that means that if you want to trust what you see, you're going to have to experience it for yourself in real life. And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
and there's always
It
suspend your disbelief in the movies, right? Or on TV,
sure.
the content. I think the problem is, and that's always going to be the case, is that when you go to a theater, or when you sit down at your TV and you're watching fiction, right? That's what it is. It's all made up. So you don't have to worry about that. But if it's on your phone and it's in social media, then it starts to blur the lines. Or if news is starting to pick up news stories from social media, right? And they're not verifying that it's real, that's a problem.
Yeah.
So I think what we're going to find is that I think you're going to find that there's going to be an uptick in real life community building, that people are going to be getting out. And the screens then become how they find out. It's their discoverability mechanism. It's how they find out about the in real life events. But the value is in the real life events. And that could be
Hmm.
screenings, right? I'm hoping it's screenings, it's back to the theaters, but then you need content to sit into the theaters that's good, that people want to see. So,
You also need the attention span too.
yes. Yeah, absolutely.
And I've noticed this by watching with a few youngins, my stepkids. Uh, like, you talk about suspension of disbelief. Sometimes it's not there, and a lot of times I'm like, they would come back and go, well, this couldn't happen. I'm like, there's called suspension of disbelief. You're just supposed to understand that it works in this world, but it doesn't. I'm like, oh boy. So it's interesting how the gap is between different generations, because growing up with that instant access and all the things going through, I don't even want to go down that road. But I have a few more questions.
Well, one thing I was just going to say to that, to kind of double click in that, which is interesting, is, one of the things that is taught in screenwriting is that you have to set up the rules of the world.
Yeah.
Right. And if you don't set the rules of the world up pretty quickly, then you might start getting conversations that you just said that you had with your young viewers, right? Where they're like, that can't happen. It's like, well, then maybe the creative team didn't do a good enough job setting up the rules of the world, right? Because
Well, we're talking about vibranium in like
okay.
Marvel Universe, you know, it's just like, it's
Oh yeah.
ridiculous.
Okay.
Uh, the question I want to ask you and ask everybody this is like, what is the most difficult part of your job?
The most difficult part of my job is that now we can do anything. We're the bottleneck.
Interesting.
What I mean by that is we have all these ideas every day to make our lives easier. But in order to set it up, even at least for me, some people, they'll vibe code anything and they'll be like, it's great. Let's put it out there, and maybe it'll break later, but they're not worried about it. Given my background on operations and given my experience coming into where we are right now, I and not everybody's like this. I see a solution in its completeness pretty vividly when a problem
Mm.
arises.
Mm-hmm.
In order to get there, for everybody to get there together, it means that I actually need to go and kind of architect things. And that takes me a little bit of time. Once it's done, which means you have to carve out the time to sit quietly and iterate. And I do that with my bots, right?
Mm.
Because I have it in here, I have to translate it so that I can translate it to everybody else who's human.
Yeah.
Right. And so it takes me a little bit of time, and there's so many things happening so quickly that are all equally important for everything to be successful. I'm not sure I answered the question properly, but for me, it's that I'm realizing I say yes to a lot of things because I see where it all can happen, and it's
Mm.
not replacement. It's a completely different business model. And what we're talking about, right, is the creative process of what's next, the next version of storytelling in all its glory. It doesn't mean that one is replacing theaters or one's replacing cinema or one's replacing television programming. It's the meet the audience where they are and
Mm.
have quality content. Quality is subjective too, by the way, but quality content for your targeted audience, or your community that you're focused on. There are so many options right now that it's like I only have so many hours in a day or so many. I see it, and then you have to there's just so much. It's in a very
Yeah.
exciting time. I'm not overwhelmed with it. I'm just like, I see it. Let's just hold that. Let's hold it and then keep eating away at it until it's finished and then release it to the world. And then all the time I get back again. And then I just know myself, I'm going to fill it right back up with 50 other ideas.
Well, that leads into the next question was, what is your favorite thing about what you do?
I love seeing other people realize that they have a choice and an option and don't feel like they are the recipient or the of somebody else's choices, right?
Mm.
And so for me, leveraging generative AI in the generative media space is just that. You know,
Mm.
when I when I was on traditional sets, I would usually say two things before we ever filmed anything. We'd get the crew around, and I would say, you know, this is our project, so we have to act as if everyone owns it. And that means open communication, open dialogue. We're all here to get the same thing done. I want everybody, and that meant if you have a contribution, make it, right? And then the second thing was have a good time. Like we're
Yeah.
making magic. This started like all the people that came to set was because somebody had an idea and was able to get that sold through at every gatekeeper. And if you come with energy that's positive, you can see that through the screen. And so I always reminded people like, it's a choice for you to come to work happy. It's a choice for you to not be the recipient of, but be the participant in. And if you do those two things, the outcome is so much better.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of say that the same here, right? Is that it's an infinite pie. It's not a finite pie. We have just as many opportunities as creators to create something that I know I can sit down and watch 15 different types of programming or consume 15 or 20 different types of entertainment. Not every single one of them is going to look traditional, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and potentially some of them I'm not even aware of because somebody hasn't dreamed them up yet and put them in front of me. So I'm really excited
It's coming.
about those things, right? Like the unlock for people when they stop being scared of a replacement
Mm-hmm.
and start being excited about being a driver of whatever the thing is. Generative AI is just a tool to be used to amplify the creative that's within you.
I'm glad you said that too.
Yeah.
So you mentioned this earlier, but I love asking people, especially in the creative, what is next?
For everyone, for me, for
No, for you, like for what you're doing, what's next for you?
oh, you don't think I have enough going on? Kidding. Um, for me, what's next is, the festival.
Hmm.
We're knee deep. We actually we have a partnership with the city of Atlanta and Invest Atlanta right now on
Oh,
a
fantastic.
AR competition where we're doing workshops right now where we are training up uh, or upskilling spatial computing students or want to learn artists and at no cost. So to them because of our partnership with the Invest Atlanta. And
Wow.
so we're teaching them how to use a new form of emerging tech. And it's really not emerging. I mean, it's been around for actually a while. It just didn't have a distribution at scale necessarily. And so what that looks like is we are we're training everybody up right now. In May, we're going to open up a AR competition, and it's focused on different um, murals around the city of
Oh,
Atlanta.
cool.
So what we want them to do is create a layer of AR art on top of an existing mural to let it come to life. And the eight prizes are that it's a cash prize, but then your art will also be on exhibition during the 2 days that the Altera Festival is going on in June, which happen to be between the first match and the second match of the FIFA World Cup.
Oh
So
boy.
Atlanta is a host city. So we want
Hmm.
to highlight and showcase the artist that the state and the city is producing. And we want to do it on a global scale so that all the visitors that are coming through can experience that. And so that leads into the Altera Festival and the Altera Festival, where again, education is kind of embedded in the fabric of what Altera is. And so everything we do, there's a component of learning and exhibition. So that's what we're focused on.
This is incredible, Elizabeth. Thank you so much for everything. And I just wanted to ask, where can everybody, find your work or can follow you, what you're doing right now?
Oh, I'm going to say something that's so unpopular. I only have one social media channel, and that is LinkedIn.
Very professional.
Yeah, I am not
Well, I mean, like Altera, like how do people
Altera
find that?
Festival. Yeah, for sure. Altera Festival. And if you're in the Atlanta, Georgia area, we have meetups every month. But follow me on LinkedIn, Elizabeth Kealoha, because that's usually where I'll post and promote anything that we're doing. Um, Most of the work that I do as a generative media EP under Mylan Pictures is I'm under NDAs, so I can't highlight or showcase any of the things, and which is such a bummer because there have been some amazing, really fun um, projects that we've been able to do. And I can just say, you know, large companies are adopting generative AI. At first, I think it's going to be internal comms, but again, that's an area that has gone untapped, and so there are revenue streams for people. You just
Absolutely is.
you know how to tell the
Yeah.
story.
Yeah, that's for sure. And every company has stories to tell, especially about not only their clients, but what they've been doing. And there's so much there for everybody to play and have fun. And it's right now it's the time to do it because it's not that expensive in the in
Not
the
that
whole scope of
expensive,
things.
yeah, in comparison to, and also do it now because
Hmm.
the landscape is going to start contracting.
You mean blowing up or contracting?
Contracting.
Popping?
Yeah,
Oh, okay. So everything's going to come into
yeah,
a few owners.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, kind of like
And
everything else.
yeah, you need to, the big guys are going to eat up a lot of the small guys, which is already happening. So
Yeah.
you don't need to know all the tools. You just need to know, which tool in which bucket does the best thing for you, and then just learn that tool, because the tool might go away, but the lessons you learn, the craftsmanship that you exercise, that will be transferable.
That's excellent advice. Thank you, Elizabeth, for taking time to join me on Talent Freaks and share your insights on blending TV production mastery with generative AI in filmmaking. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider liking, subscribing, and hitting that bell. And share with your friends to help more creative minds discover these stories. Your support truly makes a difference. And be sure to check out Elizabeth's work. All the links and details will be in the description below. If you want to know more of my work, you know where to go. Visit talentfreaks.com, where you can explore some of my video work as well as my current passion for photography. And if you have ideas or guests that you'd like to see on the show, don't hesitate to reach out. I love bringing fresh perspectives to the podcast. Until next time, keep exploring, keep creating, and stay curious.